Hi, and welcome to our latest webcast for NOLA.com, the times-picayune. I'm Kim Holden, and I'm joined by a group of panelists who know just about anything and everything when it comes to the booming tourism industry here in New Orleans. We've got Walt with New Orleans and Company here with us today. Also, René Pastorek with the Downtown Development District, and Kimberly Curth, who is with the Port of New Orleans. Thanks so much for being here today. We are going to dive right in and talk about National Travel and Tourism Week, which runs May 19th through the 25th. Now, this is a time when the travel, tourism, and hospitality professionals come together to celebrate the importance of the industry and what it means for our economy and our businesses, even our personal well-being. We all know about that for sure. But we're going to start with a question that each of you can address, and it's basically, how has New Orleans' tourism sector recovered from the impacts of the pandemic, and what lessons have been learned? And I want to start with you, Walt.
Sure, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with you and with the panelists and to talk about this important industry and this important week. Travel and Tourism Week is celebrated all over the country, and it gives us an opportunity to reflect upon a $2.8 trillion industry that accounts for 15 million jobs across the United States of America. And so I think we all know that that is a major segment of our economy. It also helps to fuel so many other segments of the economy by connecting people. And as we've worked to recover from the devastation of COVID and what that meant to our industry, our city has come roaring back. You know, we still have work to do, and certainly I would not categorize us as fully recovered, but we are certainly at a level of success that that puts us in a place for continued growth. And we have really incredible events on the horizon that are going to assist us as we continue to get back to pre-COVID levels. So in some ways, our occupancy, for example, at hotels, it's not quite as high as it was. We're still a few points behind where we were in 2019. But when you talk about the rates that people are paying, the amount of people that are attending conferences, conventions, and meetings, the crowds that we're seeing at our festivals like Jazz Fest and French Quarter Fest, we're finally getting to a place, I think, where some stability is back into the marketplace, and we're seeing a lot of new investment coming in with new restaurants opening, I think, in new hotels opening, and I think even more news on that to come in the near future. So I think people are once again betting on New Orleans as a strong bet for this sector of the economy, which is a good sign. And we continue to be incredibly competitive with cities all over the country as it relates to winning the most important and the largest conferences and conventions. There's tons of competition out there. There's a lot of investment that's been made. And fortunately, our convention center, our Superdome, they've undergone significant renovations in the last couple of years and have been able to continue to allow us to compete. So I think very exciting years to come into the future. And once we get past the warm months of June and July, I think we have a really strong finish to the year. And so I think a lot of excitement and a lot of positivity.
Okay. And Kimberly, what about you from the Port of New Orleans perspective?
Well, as we know, the cruise business was hit extremely hard with COVID. It came to a complete halt with the pandemic, but we are thrilled to report that our cruise is back. Our cruise industry is back in a big way. We finished calendar year 2023 with 1.2 million cruise passenger moves. That is back to pre-pandemic levels. And we're expecting this year to be our best year yet, with at least 1.3 million cruise passenger movements, which would exceed those pre-pandemic levels. And I think the lesson that we learned is that the demand for cruising never went away. People returned from all over the world to our vibrant city to resume their cruise vacations as soon as they were able to do so, and that demand continues to grow. So really good news to report. We are expecting a record-breaking year for 2024.
All right, thank you. And René, what about the Downtown Development District?
Similarly, as my colleague said, downtown has really seen a great recovery since COVID. We've had a rough couple of years, but we're about 75% recovered in visitation. Being downtown, the center of the city, just next to the French Quarter, we have the bulk of the hotel rooms in the industry. just over 22,000. And we continue to see year-over-year growth, and we're really excited about the years to come with conventions, with cruises, and really just great days to come.
Okay, awesome. And something big coming, we all know, is Super Bowl 2025. New Orleans is set to host that once again. This is not our first rodeo, as you all know. But let's talk about the factors that led to us being selected again as the host city, and then some of the preparations, the really key preparations that are going to have to take place between now and then to see if we're ready for this event. Well, we will be ready, but what will it take to get us ready? And Walt, I want to start with you again.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we're so excited to have our 11th Super Bowl in New Orleans and in Louisiana. When you look at the fact that we'll be tying Miami for the most Super Bowls hosted in any city, and the Superdome will become the facility that's hosted the most with this next Super Bowl in 2025, it's thrilling. And I think the whole community gets excited about it. It's something that we can all rally around, and that's precisely what's happening throughout the community now. Our partners that we work with at the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, they work on this year-round and have been for many, many years. As you know, the competition is fierce for this. You have to bid, go before the owners of the NFL, make your case as to why your city is best situated. And we were fortunate enough 7 or 8 years ago to win that bid for 2024. Then, of course, when the NFL came back and added another football game to their season a couple years ago, that pushed the 2024 game into Mardi Gras. And so it got shifted to 2025. And then finally in 2025, we'll have this Super Bowl in our city, where many people across the nation have commented that we're built to host the Super Bowl. Most compact area where you can walk anywhere. You've got the convention center with the NFL fan experience, the Superdome, and then, of course, downtown and the French Quarter, all within about a 2-mile triangle. When you get here, you're here, and you know you're here for the Super Bowl. And so what we're really focused on doing is looking at that 2-mile triangle and looking at infrastructure, looking at lighting, sidewalks, all of the things in that area that we can improve between now and then, get polished up and get ready to welcome the world. Because not only will we have the fans from the 2 teams that make it to the Super Bowl, I mean, hopefully we'll have 1 team coming in. Of course, we'll have
That
our
would be
own
nice.
team. But we also have 6,000 media professionals that come in to cover the Super Bowl. And so it creates a really exceptional opportunity for us to showcase our city to the world. All eyes on us. And we generally come through in a big way when we've had these Super Bowls here. Iconic moments, great crowds, and we know that people, I know that when I was in Las Vegas last year meeting with the NFL and preparing to bring the event home to New Orleans, a lot of the sponsors and a lot of the organizations that work with the Super Bowl can't wait to get back to New Orleans. They're really thrilled, and as you said, we'll be ready. And now it's just a matter of keeping our focus and making sure that we take care of the tidying up that you do when you've got big company coming.
Yeah, and that's happening in the Downtown Development District, which we know the economic impact is astronomical for this event. So what do you see, René, that needs to be done between now and Super Bowl?
Sure, and just to reiterate what Walt said, downtown really is one of the most advantageous sports entertainment districts in the country, with 22,000 hotel rooms, the Superdome, the Convention Center, the French Quarter, all in such a short distance for walking. But DDD is part of a multi-partnered coalition with the city, with the state, with our partners here, many others, to identify improvements that will be needed downtown. So in the coming months, you'll see road repairs, sidewalk repairs, refreshed landscaping, lighting. All of that has been in the movement behind the scenes for the last couple of months, but we will start seeing some visual improvements soon.
Okay. And Kimberly, for the Port of New Orleans, I mean, having the Super Bowl here is just a great way to showcase the cruise terminals and what's happening in the port. So from your perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we are just so excited to build on the tremendous momentum we have right now and to spotlight our wonderful city that we all know that it is. And the cruise business is a vital economic engine for New Orleans and the state. We, again, are excited to build on that. We know that over 90% of our cruise passengers travel from out of state, and that translates to 300,000 hotel rooms and more than $125 million annually in local spending. So we are excited to showcase what we have here and just build on that momentum we have right now.
Okay, and let's keep it on cruises while we're talking about that. I love cruises.
I love cruises. Absolutely.
Let's keep
it
the
there.
cruise topic going. As you know, with the cruise industry being a major contributor, obviously, to tourism, what is the Port Authority doing to accommodate and enhance cruise arrivals and the ship arrivals and just experiences overall?
Oh, absolutely. And we have such a unique cruise port. We're the 6th largest cruise port. A lot of people may not realize that in the country. And what we really have to offer is that when our cruise passengers come here, they can enjoy 2 vacations in one. We know that the majority of our cruise passengers spend up to 2 days in New Orleans, either before or after their cruise. And that, of course, is injecting money into our economy because they're visiting our world-renowned restaurants, our attractions, our shops. And what's also unique about our cruise terminals is that they are located within the heart of the city, within walking distance of the historic French Quarter. So we are building on that, and we have tremendous demand in our cruise. In fact, the cruise industry as a whole, industry-wide, is expecting record years, a record year in 2024. More people are cruising, and that is certainly what's going on here at Port NOLA as well. We also have more port calls that are happening right now, and that is not necessarily a home-ported vessel, but that is a cruise vessel that comes in town just to experience New Orleans. We had the Celebrity Constellation here for Mardi Gras, so we know that people from all over the world want to experience our festivals and everything that we have to offer with our culture, and it's right there. We, of course, have an international airport within 20 minutes of our cruise terminals, so we are seeing a lot of people that really, really love what we have to offer here in New Orleans when it comes to cruising. What also is really distinctive about our cruise port is that we offer both ocean-going cruises and river cruises. And there is a lot of demand, very popular for our river cruising.
Any expansions on the horizon in terms of the cruise ships calling New Orleans home?
Well, that is certainly something that we are in constant communication with our valued cruise line partners about, because there is very strong growth projections with our cruise industry and our cruise line partners. And in fact, Carnival just celebrated its 30th anniversary cruising from New Orleans this month and brought a new ship to New Orleans. And so we now have, they've continued for 5 more years here in this market with 2 year-round vessels. We have Norwegian coming with a new vessel, as well as Royal Caribbean with a new vessel. Disney just wrapped up their season. They were back with the Disney Magic in January, and of course, record demand for our river cruising as well. So yes, a lot of conversations on that front.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, so let's talk, Walt, a little bit about New Orleans' unique culture and history. And you know, we know it's more competitive when you're trying to market the city nowadays than it used to be. So how do you leverage those aspects in your marketing efforts to really stand out from other destinations?
So there's no question that we're blessed to have all of these cultural assets that we do have in this community, including all of the creative people that make our city so unique. And so you will notice in our advertisements and in our promotions, we're pretty heavy on the people that are in those ads. You look at a lot of advertisements and promotions in other communities, and you see a lot of landscape or mountains or beaches or water, and we certainly are highlighting the French Quarter or the Garden District or City Park or any of the other communities across the city, but we really focus heavily on the people. And so finding a way to make sure that people can see themselves in our advertising and our promotion, enjoying our city along with the people that make up our city, we think is really important, and it's proven to be very successful over the years. But we also do things like utilizing our website, NewOrleans.com, to try to create opportunities for our creatives to be able to promote what they're doing as well. So last year in October, we launched a musician database that supplies every musician in the city of New Orleans that wants one, an individual microsite on NewOrleans.com. Allows them to promote their music, to link to Spotify or any of the other streaming services that may carry their music. And we're even working on some features that would allow people to tip directly to those musicians through Venmo or Cash App or one of the others. So we continue to look for ways to promote the individual. We find ways to get our chefs and our other culinary leaders into positions in cities around the country where they can promote themselves, but also promote our city. And we're always sort of leaning forward with that. Now, interestingly, we also do a lot of work on the convention, meeting, and conference side. And our goal is to bring as many of these conferences and meetings to the city as we can. We have to kind of lean heavily on the infrastructure for that, because the most important thing that a meeting planner wants to know is that they can have a successful meeting. So they need to know that the convention center is adequate to host their meeting, or that one of our many hotels is prepared to host an in-house meeting for their gathering. They need to know about the walkability of our city. They can save some money then that they don't have to spend on buses and other things because of the walkability. Mm-hmm. Some communities are so spread out that's not an option for them. So we've really got to lean heavily in on the infrastructure and then on the professionalism of our staffing at all of those facilities to be able to produce a successful event. Because when these organizations come in, oftentimes their conference or convention could be 60 to 80% of their annual revenue. So they got to know they're going to have a good meeting. Once we can win that meeting by showing them that we can do it well and produce it well, then we shift with our team to working directly with their team on selling the culture and the experience of what New Orleans is going to add value to that meeting. And so we have some professionals on our team that we call marketing and attendance building, where they will become a part of the meeting planners team and then work with that association or organization to help them recruit their members to be at the event in New Orleans. And I think we're very proud of the fact that oftentimes these meetings are performing much, much better in our city than they do in others. I think that has a lot to do with the people of our city, with the infrastructure, and certainly with the culture, the food, the music, the history, and so much more. So it's a huge part of what we do domestically and internationally. And I think we're really fortunate to have those tools at our disposal.
You have a lot to work with.
Yeah, definitely do. Never a shortage of culture.
No. All right, Renee, let's talk about some new projects on the horizon, focusing on improving public spaces in downtown New Orleans. Like, how do these enhancements contribute to the overall vibrancy of the area?
Sure. And speaking of our great people, something that we just kicked off is our Parks and Open Space Cultural Activation Plan. And so what that's going to do is look at our existing parks and open spaces that are underutilized, maybe could provide additional capacity with infrastructure improvements or programming as options for local artisans, artists, culture bearers to either be part of unique art installations or unique programming that can then add value to conventioneers, to cruise passengers in their stay downtown. And so we're looking at Mississippi River Heritage Park, Piazza d'Italia, some other spaces around downtown, and we're really excited to start working on that. We should be seeking public input over the summer and into the fall, and then have recommendations wrapped up by the end of the year.
I was going to say, will this happen before Super Bowl 2025?
So the plan is a long-term plan. However, we do have some resources that we're looking to deploy before Super Bowl with those unique art installations, as well as some infrastructure improvements.
Okay. Looking forward to that. This is a question for everybody on the panel. Are there new trends in tourism that you're particularly excited about? And how is New Orleans adapting to these trends? And then trends change, obviously. That's why they're trends. So, Kimberly.
So for cruising, we're really excited about what we're hearing from the cruise industry as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, we are seeing record bookings for cruise right now, and that is across all age groups. I think what cruising really has to offer is that you can see multiple destinations in one trip. It's typically all-inclusive. It can offer some really great deals, cost-efficient deals, perhaps more cost-efficient than some of the landside alternatives. So people are really taking advantage of that. They can have a wonderful experience, and particularly from New Orleans, as we mentioned, because they're staying here 1 or 2 days, either before or after that cruise. So that's 2 vacations in one. So they can have that wonderful cruise vacation to the Caribbean or to perhaps a river cruise up to Baton Rouge and Memphis and St. Louis to really have that unique experience to see the Mississippi River, or they can do the tropical vacation. And there's just some great deals, and there's a record number cruise passengers that they'll be taking sometimes their first cruise, and that momentum will continue. They'll come back.
Okay. Walt, what about you? What are you particularly excited about?
Well, so a couple of things. One, this year is proving to be more of a domestic travel year. So last year, there were a lot of Americans who were seeking overseas vacations. There were a lot of people who were finally kind of breaking out of the COVID funk and were trying to go to Europe or trying to make these larger international trips. And so domestically, things were a little flat. We're seeing kind of the reversal of that. People have made those trips. They're looking for domestic destinations. And so we are benefiting from that as well as other American cities are. But we certainly see a positive trend. And so we've redoubled our efforts on the domestic front to reach out to key markets and to really promote getting our neighboring cities and states to come visit New Orleans again if they haven't been here for a while, or to come try us out for the first time. Some other trends around business travel that gets blended with leisure travel that they're calling bleisure in the marketplace. I don't like the word very much, but the sentiment is if you can work from anywhere, then you can build leisure into your work. And whether you're here for a business trip and you extend it for a leisure purpose, or whether you just come to New Orleans for a week and work remotely, those trends are continuing in across the country. We think that we're a prime location for that to have great benefit for our people here in the city of New Orleans. When you couple that with some really great, unique hotels coming online, boutique hotels with a lot of personality, a lot of local flavor, and new offerings like Hotel St. Vincent, the Hotel Chloe, Henrietta, which is just opening up on St. Charles Avenue, first new construction in many, many years on St. Charles Avenue. These are creating new opportunities for people to engage with our city in a different way, gets them into different parts of the community, and really, I think, allows them to become a part of the community in the short term. And so those trends, I think, are very favorable for us. And then finally, the trend that we see emerging for summer travel this year is a really strong focus on road trips. And so for us, that means Texas, that means Mississippi, Alabama, Florida as really great markets for us to bring people to the city of New Orleans. And so trying to capitalize on that as well. All of those things, as you said, trends change. I was with a researcher just this past week receiving some of these insights, and it used to be that they looked at 1 and 2 and 3 year trends, and now they're really looking at 3 and 4 month trends.
Oh, wow.
Because things just change that rapidly. The way that people travel is a little different now. The decision-making process is often quicker. And people are either making very long-term travel plans or very short-term travel plans, and so you've got to be prepared to be able to roll with the punches and keep New Orleans on the top of mind for people who are either looking for a quick getaway at the last minute or who are looking to plan something for next year.
And does New Orleans market to every state in the country?
We have about 38 markets that we focus on, so no, not every state.
Okay.
I wish we had the resources to be able to be, that broad with our reach, but we've identified the 38 or so markets that are the most prominent, that have produced the most for us over the years, and that's where we tend to focus our main spending, and probably 20 of those more so even than the other 18. But we're actually relaunching some new branding in the next couple of weeks, and that messaging will be going out to those 38 markets where we're trying to reach people who we feel like we have the best opportunity, to fish where the fish are.
Yeah,
and bring them to the city.
Yep. Okay, René, what are you excited about? Trends in tourism.
Yeah, so one trend that we're excited about with the data we collect is that people who are visiting the city are spending more nights on average than they were several years ago, and in fact, additional 3 nights more on average. And that really is a credit to my colleagues in many different organizations over the last 20, 30 years who have really helped expand the growth of the tourism industry with new offerings, as Walt and Kimberly said. Now, what that really means for us is that we're continuing to see how we can enhance local assets and build new amenities to continue that trend, and really bring people here for longer and have more nights in hotels, more reservations at restaurants, et cetera.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about festivals. We could talk about festivals for days, right? New Orleans obviously hosts a wide array of festivals every year. So let's talk about the impact on the tourism sector. Just huge festivals, French Quarter Fest, Jazz Fest, the list goes on and on. What is the impact? We know it's huge.
Yeah, so it's billions of dollars of impact. I don't think any question about that. We have more festivals than we have days of the year in the state of Louisiana, and that's becoming the norm in New Orleans too. I think there are a couple of distinctions that are important. So Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, as you referenced, I think French Quarter Fest had 950,000 people who attended this year. Jazz Fest just announced about 500,000 attendees this year. Those are huge numbers, and they drive visitation, and they put people in hotels, and they have them filling up our restaurants at night. And then you've got the broad variety of festivals like Beignet Fest and Fried Chicken Fest and so many of these others that have come on the scene. I think they're incredibly important for locals and for our regional neighbors in surrounding parishes to come in. And certainly there's some visitation that comes along with it. But beyond a doubt, I think what it does is it sets us apart. It allows us to have this identity of celebrating our food and our culture and our music in a way that nobody else really can, that people kind of try to replicate, but they can't quite capture the joy that we bring to it. And so it gives us an identity, which is really valuable. And what it does for a lot of our convention and conference attendees is they want to replicate those experiences in their own small ways as a part of their events because they know how important and powerful they are for us. So, I think they're important to our vendors. I think they're important to our creatives and musicians who get to participate and generate revenue from them. But I also think they're really important to the people who live here, and it becomes such a part of our ritual. And ultimately, a city like ours and a region like ours that's so much smaller than so many of the other major metropolitan areas out there, for us to have the amount of celebrations and the amount of culture, we get to live in a city that feels a lot larger than it really is because we're able to attract people in to celebrate along with us and bring the economic impact. So I think they're not just economically impactful. I think they're just culturally significant to our well-being.
And gosh, anybody thinking about coming here from anywhere, you're pretty likely to have a festival going on, even if it's not Jazz Fest or French Quarter Fest. Something will be happening.
You're going to get a taste. I think you're absolutely right. They're constant, and it's impressive.
Kimberly?
Well, we are a one-of-a-kind city. We all love it. We love the festivals. And as those festivals, they're becoming larger and more popular, and people around the world now recognize that, and they want to experience all that we have to offer. And that means coming to New Orleans, and our cruise passengers, we're seeing that because we're seeing even more port calls, which again are those vessels that are specifically, perhaps they're home ported in Tampa. They're making trips just to New Orleans to experience New Orleans. And we saw that this year with Mardi Gras, with the Celebrity Constellation. And that cruise was from Tampa coming to New Orleans as part of its itinerary, just so their passengers could get off the vessel and go experience Mardi Gras and then get back on and continue their vacation. Mm-hmm. So we see more of those port calls, and that is a direct reflection of people, around the world recognizing how incredible our city is, how vibrant it is, and how unique we are. We're a one-of-a-kind city.
And I can imagine some cruise passengers would probably come in a few days early.
Absolutely.
To experience one of the bigger festivals and then jump on the cruise ship. And like you said, have an extended vacation.
What a great vacation.
Just helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Renee, what about you? Let's talk about festivals in the downtown development district.
So one of the reasons I love festivals is because it allows visitors and residents to experience the city in a different way and really, livens up a space or an area that may just be, kind of nondescript on a daily basis. But, for example, Wednesday at the Square, Lafayette Square, on a normal day, doesn't have too many people visiting, but, every Wednesday in spring, it's rocking with people, with food, with music. And of course, all the vendors and the musicians and people participating, of course, there's that economic impact for them. But the data that we've subscribed to as well shows that people are actually visiting other businesses in the downtown area both before and after festivals. So let's say they might stop at Rouse's to pick up supplies before they head to the festival, and then they'll go to dinner or drinks afterwards down the street. And that's something that I think really, can't be underestimated, the larger economic impact that a festival can bring to a neighborhood.
And in your opinion, what recent expansions or upgrades have helped to ensure successful festivals recently? Like, what other improvements are in the works to really help with the festivals in general?
Sure. So I mentioned in the future we have our Parks and Open Space Plan. We're looking at ways to revitalize underutilized public spaces and potentially bring smaller festivals to some areas downtown. But of course, Spanish Plaza is one great example of a massive renovation that was done over the last couple of years with a lot of investment with the Four Seasons, with Caesars undergoing renovation. And French Quarter Festival has been able to expand there, bring more people there. There's a lot of activations that the owner of the Riverwalk is starting to bring to Spanish Plaza. So that's just one example of how, investment in a public space can really open up the door to more economic activity.
Okay. And Walt, how has the branding of New Orleans evolved in recent years under the efforts of New Orleans and Company? Because really, there've been changing travel preferences, not only here, but globally.
I think the biggest change has been a real focus on marketing and promotion directly to event planners through our program that we call Built to Host. So Built to Host is a marketing plan that we built with the convention center hand in hand, and that we work with our hotel partners across the community to market our city as built to host special events, conferences, meetings, and major events. Before that, we didn't really have a true voice on that specific segment. And what's important about the segment is that it forms the foundation of the hospitality and tourism economy. So in 2019, for example, we had about 20 million visitors. About 4 million of those visitors were here for conferences, meetings, or conventions, but they accounted for nearly 55% of the overall spending. So far outpaced the spending of our leisure visitors, and that's because a convention or a conference or a meeting requires things that individuals don't. It needs bus transportation. They need large venues to host events. They buy out restaurants. They don't just have one reservation. They need caterers. They need audiovisual technicians, and on and on and on. So each of those events is like a small economic development project in and of itself for a few days at a time. It touches 15 or 20 different small businesses. So I think the evolution of really being focused about how we communicate with corporate meeting planners, how we communicate with associations and organizations that are planning major conferences and events, and how we continue to work with our partners at the Sports Foundation and others to bring in major events has been very helpful, especially at a time where the industry has gone from maybe 8 or 10 really critically important destination cities for these events to probably 25 or 30. And so the events are more competitive to bring to your community than ever. We've needed this effort, and it's allowed us to really sell our city in a different way. We all know that it is world famous for celebrations, for joy, for Mardi Gras, for festivals, for all of those things. That can sometimes work against you when you're talking to corporate meeting planners, because they're here to do a professional meeting that's got to get done, and it's not hard to leap to, well, are people going to be really tuned in, or are they going to be having a great time in an amazing city? Right. And so our job has got to be to convince them that they can do both, that they can have an incredibly effective meeting that will be professional, that will be executed with expertise, but that also allows you to tap into the creative juices that only a place like New Orleans can bring out of people. And with the food and with the music and with all the culture that goes along with it, you can be inspired to go to even greater heights. And so I'm really proud of the evolution of our sales process in that way. The other things we've had to do is really dig deeper into sustainability. The convention center has received Gold LEED certification, which we're really proud of. It's a 1984 building with a few upgrades along the way. To retrofit a building like that is not easy. Our meeting planners are looking for sustainable options when they plan their meetings. They're looking to reduce their carbon footprint on a community. And so we've got to be able to speak to that. We've got to be able to talk intelligently about the hurricane risk reduction system that's been built to protect our city, because otherwise July and August are impossible months to sell. And so the breadth that our team has had to sort of sell and the knowledge that they've got to have to be able to address some of these concerns has gotten a lot broader, but I think our messaging and our built to host sort of umbrella has allowed us to keep at the forefront the infrastructure and the people that are necessary to help people put on those events. And that's been a pretty significant change.
Sounds like a good change. Sounds like a great change for the city. And Kimberly, I know we've talked a lot about the cruise industry, but can you talk about how tourism promotes trade and investment in New Orleans?
Sure, absolutely. And I think that all comes back to the significant contributions that the cruise industry as a whole in New Orleans has on our region. We are seeing that our valued cruise line partners continue to commit and have confidence in the Louisiana cruise market through the Port of New Orleans. And so we know that Carnival just renewed for 5 more years. They've celebrated their 30th anniversary, as I mentioned, with 2 home-ported vessels. We also have Norwegian and Royal Caribbean and Disney and, of course, our river cruise line partners. So they continue to commit to this market. They continue to invest in this market because there is such strong growth and such demand right now. And so we expect that to just continue and have our best year yet.
Okay. How do your respective organizations contribute to preserving and promoting the cultural heritage of New Orleans while also encouraging tourism? Renee, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, one piece of cultural heritage is architecture. And of course, many visitors to the city are here to see our incredible wealth of architecture, both in the French Quarter and on the downtown side. And we have our facade improvement grant program. We provide $20,000 match grants to property owners of historic qualifying buildings to renovate the exterior facade and really bring them back to life. And it's been a wildly successful program over the last couple decades, and we've seen a lot of investment because of it.
Okay. Walt?
We have the benefit of being able to partner with an incredible amount of community-based organizations that do great work. And year in and year out, we certainly work with DDD and with Port NOLA on an almost daily basis, but working with Preservation Resource Center. In fact, we've been able to work with them and others in the historic preservation community to bring the annual meeting for the National Historic Trust to New Orleans later this fall. We feel like when we can attract meetings that actually mean something to our community, it brings even more power to it. And so celebrating the architecture and celebrating historic preservation and the excellence that our city has proven to have in that regard is something that we can really be happy to celebrate and able to amplify. The musicians database is another one where we really try to invest in individuals and help promote them along with the city. I think that our city benefits maybe more than almost any other from people who come from our city and go on to do incredible things. It's almost like their identity is tied to our city. And I don't feel like you hear as often that so-and-so artist is from Chicago or so-and-so artist is from San Francisco. But it seems like when you've got an incredible musician or chef or individual from our community, New Orleans gets kind of permanently attached to them. That's an amazing thing for all of us in the community. So we really try to lean in on how can we help those talented individuals get the attention that they deserve while also promoting our community and our city for others that will follow behind it. And, those are some really key ways to help support the ongoing cultural assets. But we also work with Roots of Music and, other entities across our community that are ensuring that the next generation of students that are learning the creative arts are going to be able to make a living and be successful and receive the support that they need across our community so that we can continue to be a beacon of culture in the future and that we don't ever run the risk of losing any of that.
You do feel like there's a little bit of New Orleans in every city.
There's
when you
no
travel,
doubt.
it's really unbelievable.
It's amazing how much there is. I mean, I was recently in Boston and I turned the corner and I could immediately smell Popeye's fried chicken. It was amazing, like a little piece of home. But, there's no doubt there are the influence. We talk a lot about how New Orleans is the original influencer because we've influenced so many things across the nation and across the world. And I think it's part of the reason why our city here along the Mississippi River that's got 385,000 people in it is often ranked as one of the top 50 cities in the world to visit and recognized in lists with Paris and London and so many, Rome and so many others. We certainly get attention, and it's because of the people, the culture that we've all developed together here, and that we've been able to share with the world in so many ways.
All right. So this is a question for everybody here. Can you talk about any collaborative efforts between your organizations that have been particularly successful in boosting tourism in this region? We'll start with you, René.
Sure. I mean, one of the top ways we collaborate is really through data sharing. So when we hear about cruises coming to town or conventions, we're able to deploy on-the-ground resources with our clean team, our public safety rangers, to really ensure that the area that these folks might be visiting are really getting that extra special touch so that we can really enhance their experience. And that's one of the top ways we collaborate, for sure.
Okay. Kimberly?
Well, we certainly want to thank our cruise line partners and our hospitality partners, particularly New Orleans and Company, because we continue to work together to market New Orleans cruising as 2 vacations in one, because it really is. It's what sets us apart, that we know that we embrace the culture, we market it, and we just all love it, and we want our cruise line passengers to experience that as well, and they are. They are staying here and having those 2 vacations in one. They can spend the night here in New Orleans, as we mentioned, enjoy our restaurants, our attractions, our shops, and our culture, and then go take their cruise vacation. And that continues, and it's been very, very successful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
the partnerships with these 2 organizations is, as I said, daily. And so with the port, I think people probably generally don't fully grasp how competitive it is to win this cruise market. And we're ultimately working with them to make sure that we're selling to travel agents and other travel professionals who end up booking a lot of this business. And so you've got to really successfully get to them. Certainly we're getting consumers out there across the country who say, I want to cruise out of New Orleans. And we believe that a lot of that's because they feel like they can get that 2-for-1 vacation. But if you can't get those travel professionals locked in and sold on what New Orleans has to offer, then you ultimately are not going to get the bulk of the visitors that we're getting. So we have to work strategically with them to get to the marketplace where those people are and make sure that they choose New Orleans over the other destinations that are out there that they could choose. And so that partnership is critical. Similarly with DDD, we know how special this place is. Sometimes our biggest challenges are the lowest hanging fruit. We talk about all the infrastructure upgrades that we want to get done before the Super Bowl. Cleanliness has been a challenge for us at times. Ensuring that we are able to keep up with infrastructure has been challenging at times. DDD is one of our most trusted and important partners in trying to identify where we can really have an impact. We work with them to go to the legislature looking for resources that we can bring back to add to their to the dollars that they generate in their taxing district. But yeah, it's a daily conversation, one that is always about how we move forward together, how we not only promote our city downtown, our port as excellent for people who are coming in, but also how do we improve it for the people who live here, and how do we attract our residents to come downtown. Our restaurants, our attractions, we need visitors to support them, but we also need local and regional visitors to come and enjoy the aquarium, to come and enjoy the riverfront, to come and enjoy our restaurants, to be in the French Quarter, and to participate actively in the economy. And that was injured during COVID as well. And so we're still repairing those relationships and helping people to fully embrace the incredible, capacity we have downtown to entertain and keep them happy and keep them full of joy and allow them to be, visitors in their hometown for a little while. So these partnerships are incredibly important. Nothing really gets done in this town by any one organization. And so we've got a lot of great partners across the industry that make it happen.
Seems like it. Okay, so we've touched on a lot of different areas today. I'd love to hear some final thoughts on National Travel and Tourism Week and what it means for your organization and just the city in general moving forward. We'll start with you, René.
Sure. So, at DDD, we understand that downtown is, the heart of the city. It's the largest job center in the state. It's the first stopping point for many visitors when they visit our city. And it's of the utmost importance that we continue to keep it looking great, continue to add amenities, and we hope to see additional visitors come year after year because of the work that we do.
Kimberly?
Well, we will continue to work with our hospitality and cruise line partners to market New Orleans, and we are just so excited about the momentum that we're seeing right now in the city, as well as in the cruise business, and we're building on that, and with very, very strong growth projections, and again, we are expecting a record year for 2024 for our cruise business.
All right, some final thoughts from you, Walt. I know you have a lot.
I do. So, well, look, National Travel and Tourism Week is an opportunity to celebrate travel generally. And so we want as much of it as we can possibly get to come to our city. But also it's about kind of reminding the broader economy, reminding policymakers and every other industry that without travel, their jobs are more difficult. And so we're asking Congress to look at ways to make it easier to connect. New technology in our airports so that facial recognition and other technologies can be utilized to make it easier to move in and out of our airports and to visit communities across the country, and to look at some things like visa wait times. It's been so difficult for people internationally to come into the United States in the last couple of years because it's taken so long for them to get through the process of getting a visa to visit. So it's a great opportunity to highlight those big picture things that hold the travel economy back, because we know that here in Louisiana, whether it's the energy sector or whether it's the logistics or any of the other things that we really specialize in here, travel is required to make those things happen. And so it's not just about vacations. It's not just about people visiting locations for leisure or even for conventions, conferences, and meetings, but it's really about how you power the whole economy. And so ensuring that we keep that in the front of mind and that we understand that travel is essential to making the broader economy go, that's an important thing to do, and this week gives us a chance to do it.
All right. Very good. That is going to wrap things up for our discussion today on travel, National Travel and Tourism Week, and it is an exciting week for everyone here on this panel. We want to thank our panelists for joining us today to really help highlight this industry's undeniable impact on the New Orleans area, the New Orleans economy. I am Kim Holden on behalf of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Thanks so much. Thank you, guys.